Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Inspire with Fire. I'm Krista Abbott, your host, and today we're going to be talking about part two of God's constant love. Don't worry if you missed part one. I'm going to do a short recap at the beginning, and we will get started in about 5 seconds. All right, welcome to Inspire with Fire, where we meet you at the intersection of life, faith, family, and business. And I'm excited to be with you today to come back and discuss part two of God's constant love. Now, we're going to get into that in just a minute, but just a little bit of housekeeping. As you come into the room, I see you guys hopping on already. Thank you for being here this morning. As you come into the room, go ahead and drop me a comment in the comments because I can see that you're here, but I cannot see who is here unless you comment and let me know that you're watching. So do me a favor and drop a comment, say hello, and let me know that you're here. And part two of our housekeeping is if you're catching this on the replay, then be sure and drop hashtag replay in the comments and let me know that you saw it on the replay, and I will be sure and come back and give you some love in the comments a little bit later. But as you guys are coming into the room live here, please go ahead and drop a comment. Good morning. It is great to see you. Drop a comment. Please let me know you're here, where you're watching from. I always enjoy seeing where everybody is. Hey, Dan, good morning. Long time no see, buddy. Great to see you on this morning. We are going to jump right into today's inspiration. We're talking about part two of God's constant love. And today our inspiration comes from Psalm 107, really the entirety of the chapter, but we're only going to actually read verse 1 here, and I would just encourage you to spend some time in that whole chapter later in your own time. And we may recap a little bit tomorrow and go over more of it, but for today, let's focus on this. So, Psalm 107:1 in the Passion Translation says, "Let everyone give all their praise and thanks to the Lord. Here's why. He's better than anyone could ever imagine. Yes, he's always loving and kind, and his faithful love never ends." And that last phrase there is really what we've been focusing on in our conversation the past 2 days here, is that his faithful love never ends. God's love is constant. And just as a reminder, we talked a little bit about faithfulness in the last episode, being that it is something that is steady and constant. That so it's basically saying God's love, His affection, His allegiance, His loyalty to us is it never ends. It's constant and it's steady and it's stable, and that's what makes it faithful. So, some of the characteristics as we look through this entire chapter, you can begin to see some characteristics of faithfulness unfold as the story progresses there of all the different ways God has shown his faithfulness to the writer of this particular psalm. And we touched on four of those in episode one, and I'll recap those really quick. In verse 6 and 7, it shows how He's faithful in that He rescues us from trouble and He keeps us safe. So that was number one. Number two was that He provides for our needs. That it talked about in verse 9 how the land was hungry and thirsty, and God provided substance for the land. So our hearts are the land and the soil for his spirit to plant things. So he always provides for our spiritual needs. Number three was based on verse 14, and it talks about how he brings light into dark places. So God brings that illumination and that light into our lives when we're walking through seasons of uncertainty or seasons of darkness. Can anybody relate to that one right now? Number four that we talked about in part one was that he brings freedom and to the captive, and he breaks chains and tears down prison walls and gates so that people can experience that freedom that comes only through him. So we're going to move on in part 2 today, and we're going to talk about 3 more. Number 5 in the 9 things that we found, or the 8 things rather that we found in Psalm 107, was that God heals those who are sick, and that can be found and seen in verse 20 and that section around there. And that is another certain and secure way that God demonstrates His faithfulness and His loyalty to us. That in any way that our body or our mind or our spirit, any aspect of our humanity is sick or not whole in any way, then God comes in and provides that wholeness. He comes in and provides healing to those areas of our lives that need healing, whether it's, personal, whether it's relationships, finances, even. God can provide healing to every area of our life. And that promise can be found in this passage here in Psalm 107, right around the verse 20 area. And so that's number 5. God heals those who are sick. Number 6 then would be is found around verse 29, and talks about how God comes in when there's storms and chaos. God comes in and He brings a calmness, and He brings a certain level of security that comes in to be able to provide that calmness and that stillness for us. So that gives us the ability that even when things around us may be going crazy, hello, when things around us, good morning, Julie, great to see you on this morning. And those of you who are coming in, I see more of you coming into the room. Drop me a comment and let me know that you're here, where you're watching from. I appreciate you hopping on with me today. We're talking about God's constant love, and we're on number 6 of characteristics of God's faithfulness that we can find in our inspiration passage for today in Psalm 107. So number 6 is that He brings calmness in the midst of life storms. So regardless of what is going on around you or in you or just in your neighborhood, your city, your state, regardless of what may be going on in the world around you, God's calmness, you can find peace in the center of all of that and be assured that His love is constant and that it's flowing with you and that it's always going to be there. So that was number 6. Number 7, and we've got 2 more here to go over. I think I said 3 in the beginning, but it's actually 4. So number 7 is going to be that God can be found around the verse 38 area, and it says, God blesses us and He increases our wealth. And in that passage, it's actually talking about, how He increases their cattle. Well, cattle in biblical times were a sign of wealth. They were a sign of God's blessings and favor on a person's life. So the more livestock that they had, the more harvest that they had from their crops, then the wealthier or more favored of God they were considered to be. So in demonstrating, God demonstrating this through the provision of produce or harvest from the crops and livestock, the increase of their livestock or their cattle was a demonstration of God's faithfulness to bless us and to increase us and to increase our wealth and our ability to provide for the needs of not only ourselves but for others as well. So that was number 7. He blesses us and increases our wealth. Number 8 is going to be God demonstrates His constant love and His faithfulness to us because He defends us and rescues us. And you can see that in the verse 41 area of Psalm 107, where God comes in and He defends and He rescues those who are in a bad way or in a situation that would otherwise could potentially harm or destroy them. So God's always going to be our defense. Have you ever heard people say, especially if you're being attacked unjustly by someone, whether it's verbally or false accusation, which I'm sure many of us have been through. I know I've been through that, where I've been falsely accused of things. But God wants us to allow him to be our defense, for him to be the one to come forward and speak up on our behalf. And I can tell you, every time I've allowed God to do that for me in my life, he's done it, and he's done it way better than I could ever do it. So I remember Catherine Kuhlman, who, if you don't know who she is, she was a very famous or prominent healing evangelist back in the 70s. I remember hearing an old recording of her when I was younger, and it stuck with me like glue, man. Is where she was speaking in one of her meetings, and she said, always let Jesus be your defense. Like, you don't have to speak up and defend yourself. There may be times when God leads you to do that, because he doesn't, obviously doesn't want us to be a doormat and let people abuse us or mistreat us. But always let him be your defense. If people are hating on you and talking about you behind your back and saying things, you don't have to come forth and defend yourself, or give an answer for what you have or haven't done to those people. They're not your judge. God is your judge, and Jesus will step forward and be your defense. So that is like one of my favorite ways that God demonstrates his constant and faithful, steady love in our lives. So those are 8 characteristics over the past 2 days that we've talked about, where God can demonstrate his constant love. And if you missed part 1, I encourage you to go back and watch it when you have time. It's archived both on Facebook and YouTube, so you can catch them in either place there. And what I'm thinking about doing is coming back in the next episode and bringing all this together, and actually showing it these specific passages with these characteristics in this chapter. So I'm thinking about doing that, trying to figure out exactly how I could make that happen with some screen shares and stuff. So stay tuned. We'll see what happens in the next day or two where that's concerned. But I do want to anchor this. We always like to anchor what we talk about every day with a decree. So for those joining for the first time, we read these aloud together. If you're not in a place where you can read it aloud, I will be posting a meme on my Facebook page later today. You can come back and read it aloud when you are in a place where you can do that. But if you're able to read it with us right now, let's go ahead and do it. So we're going to read it through twice to anchor it deep. So here we go. Today I am grateful for God's constant love. His love heals me, defends me, rescues me, and brings peace through life's storms. I receive the faithful love of the Lord into my life. One more time. Today I am grateful for God's constant love. His love heals me, defends me, rescues me, and brings peace through life's storms. I receive the faithful love of the Lord into my life. Isn't that awesome? I love that. So I just want to thank you guys for hopping on today. I appreciate you being here. Stay tuned. I try and do these 3 or 4 times a week, right here between 7 and 8 a.m. Eastern Time. So, set an alert notification to get notified when I go live. Good morning, Nancy. Great to see you on this morning. And just, set a notification, and so Facebook can remind you. Hey, Wanda. Great to see you this morning as well. I appreciate you guys. Set a notification so that Facebook can alert you when I'm doing these. I'm working toward a consistency with it to hopefully get up to 5 days a week, but God bless me, sometimes the snooze alarm gets the better of me, you know what I'm saying? But we're working on it. We're working on it, and Jesus is helping me. So just as we close here, I just want to invite everybody to go check out my website, which needs a little bit of updating, but you can find out a little bit there at kristaabbott.com. And if you're interested in some merch, I got some cool t-shirts, hats, cups, stuff like that over at kingdom818.com. You can always find these archived over on YouTube. Just my YouTube channel is Krista Abbott, and they're also in the Facebook newsfeed. If you want to scroll through there and find old episodes, you can do that too. I do leave them up. But as we close today, as always, I just want to say, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May he make his face shine upon you and be gracious to you. May He turn His face toward you and give you peace. I hope you guys have an awesome day, and I will see you next time, hopefully tomorrow. Stay tuned.